A pleasure to meet y'all at last, and welcome back to Multiple Wheels of Steel Part 8 out of 29 for the first season. So right now, it's a pretty dang snowy time, but as you could pretty much tell, I'm pretty used to the fact that pre-recording content is going to be very helpful, especially for times where I might be too busy to the point where it might not be possible for me to record new content, or at least continue production with current projects as they are. But as you can see right behind me, here for the 8th episode, we got something rather interesting to show off. Something that has in fact been retired from local law enforcement. And if you think that this find is not constitutable enough to showcase the incredible abilities of the Ford Taurus model, then you just might be missing out on a lot of stuff around here. For today's pick, I'm proud to showcase the 2014 Ford Taurus SHO Retired Police Interceptor, which has in fact been a part of the Menominee Falls Police Department for some time until it was eventually retired, with all of the logos removed and all of the police stickers and property and stuff removed before being coated with a nice dark gray color scheme. But as you can probably tell, some of the police equipment and the like that are typically put onto interceptors like this are still around, especially with this one having a few of the most obvious perks about it still being installed to allow for consumer usage. But as you can pretty much tell, this Taurus interceptor is still in fact at the pinnacle of what you might expect to see when it comes to the Taurus model in the 2014 production year, especially given the fact that this is in fact a specialized, very, very specialized pick amongst many others that we've seen. And so, without further ado, let's get into the basics, getting to know about the car from the outside all the way to the inside, getting to know about its practicality and its usage as a four-door sedan, and how powerful it is, being a former police interceptor vehicle. And so, let's just begin, shall we? As you can pretty much see, the Taurus does have a pretty basic setup for its own remote key fob. The first part is that it has the standard unlock and lock, not to mention an automatic tailgate, which unfortunately is busted, so we're not necessarily able to get this thing to open up properly. But that's okay, because another thing about it is, well, the panic button, which is used to sound off an alarm inside the vehicle itself. So this way, anybody who might try to carjack this thing will not have the chance to do so. So if we go ahead and climb on inside, has a dark gray exterior color, but has itself fabric seats in a two-tone light gray and black color scheme, along with leather on the sides. So when getting to know the interior of the vehicle as opposed to the exterior, you have the Ford logo on the front, you have your various media, dials and turners, and not to mention a couple D-pads plus an OK button, which is mimicked on both the left side and right side. So this way you're easily able to control whatever media appears on the screen over here. You have your various telephone numbers from 1 to 0, as well as the asterisk and pound key, and not to mention various selection buttons from radio and CD to auxiliary Sirius XM. You also have the torque flight gauge system, in which the transmission stick on the side here allows you to choose the various gauges. So as you can see here, you have the key mounts located near the center console like so, rather than on the stock like how most models would. Just simply put your foot on the brake like so, and yeah, sometimes it gets stuck, but that's fine. And it fires right up. Easy as that. The gauges begin to illuminate, and the screens on both the center as well as the center console itself for the media will turn on just like that. This vehicle also does have itself a few other unique features that you probably did not know were existing. For example, this is pretty much the searchlight function that I pointed out while I was talking about the exterior itself. You also have your various headlight gauges, which also show up on the screen to let you know that they're turned on or off. And here we have ourselves the gauge outlets, which pretty much just showcases the brightness like so. As I've said before, the screen itself will immediately show up pretty much in real time to showcase an accurate display. Not to mention the torque flight automatic gearbox will easily come down like so. It also includes low gear selection as printed on the handle itself. Here we have ourselves climate control, which is mounted by these knobs over here, lined with rubber and aided with aluminum placement rings, which surround the logos themselves. Here are the hazards. And of course, in terms of climate control, you'll also have your various basic outlet in terms of AC, front and rear defrost, as well as your various ventilation systems. And then of course, well, this thing sure has a lot of punch in it in terms of its sound. Rear view mirror, interior illumination, and not to mention cup holders pretty much. There's also a pretty big space down here below which you could probably use if you're able to store something like a cooler. If it was sustainable enough, then you probably could do so. You also got a couple of DC inputs over here, which are covered up for dust reasons. And here we have ourselves another button, which refers to the back end, which, as I've said, is pretty much jammed, so you can't really get it to open properly. Here's the glove box. You have various storage pockets inside the doors, as well as the centerpiece, which unfortunately is not in great shape. So as you can see here, this Taurus has definitely seen some better days as opposed to other vehicles that I've talked about as well. And now, time to shut it down. As you can see here on the doors, there's also automatic windows for the driver's side, and the rest are pretty much non-automatic, so unfortunately that's not really the case. Locks, unlock system, as well as the door handle itself, which is in a pretty unique design if you ask me. Not to mention power mirror controls. Take a look at the back seats. Yeah, unfortunately the hinges are not in the best shape either, but as you can see back here, it's a basic bench seats, mostly leather in the backside. And because this used to be an Interceptor, there would normally be a little bit of a cage that would run across the width of the interior that would pretty much go behind both the driver and passenger seat. But unfortunately for this, it's not the case. This one has had a lot of its parts taken out, and as such, it's a very roomy back seat as you can see here, but it certainly has not seen a lot of great days out there in recent years. But at least for 2014, it certainly does well. As I mentioned before, the back seat is pretty much the only thing that I could showcase here when it comes to the rear. And so, unfortunately, this trunk is not going to be successful because it's jammed and I can't really get it open. So, that's pretty much the unfortunate part about this vehicle as opposed to many that I've reviewed already. And I will apologize about any background noise that's been happening. That's because some guys are cutting up a bunch of logs nearby, and so the last thing we're going to notify here is the engine itself. And by the way, it's been getting a lot warmer recently, and so that's how I feel obligated to be wearing shorts outside, like so. This vehicle has itself hydraulics to keep the hood open, but as you can see right here, it's a basic utilized engine. Certainly one that we have not necessarily seen, but it's certainly one that is much more powerful than the likes of most other vehicles that I've gotten to know about. Here we have ourselves the motor oil, wiper fluid, antifreeze coolant, battery, and many others. This vehicle can generate a pretty large amount of horsepower in particular, which is unlike most other Tauruses that we've seen so far. But being a former police interceptor, that is pretty much what's to expect. When regarding a 2014 model, however, in terms of the SHO and the eventual redesign of the Taurus as a whole, the fact they were able to rebuild this thing from the ground up was certainly one thing, but as you could probably tell by now, it sure is quite a treat. And now that I've officially covered everything that you need to know about this 2014 Police Interceptor, it's about time that we do the biggest part about these episodes, the obligatory driving sequence, which will in fact take place from this very spot that I'm standing in all the way out to whatever location I choose.
A few moments later.
And now we've come to the point where we could call it a day. This is the 2014 Ford Taurus SHO Police Interceptor, and it certainly does have a lot of different quirks and features that I never quite expected to see happen when it comes to Ford's innovation. In terms of building a four-door sedan, in terms of building themselves a cruiser meant for a police department in a certain township such as this one in the state of Wisconsin, for building a vehicle in general, Ford has made tons of innovations, many of which may not have been as proud as they are seen as today. But you can certainly look back on the many successes and failures that they've had throughout the past 120 years, almost. But I'm Jay Nowak, and this has been Multiple Wheels of Steel, signing off for right now. But do come in soon, as I will be having another vehicle to come to the channel ASAP. If you want to see more, go down to my channel. Make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, follow me on social media, and stay on the Hollywood side.